Okay, hello everybody. My name is Dallas Moravik, and I'm with the Edmonton Neighborhoods United. And today we have a very special guest, Jason Bale. Jason's going to be running for this year's Edmonton election in Ward Karhiio. And today we're with Jason Bale. So, hello, Jason. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, Dallas. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So, we thought it'd be important to catch up with Jason Bale. Last week, there was a leak put out with the Edmonton Working Families group. And so we just wanted to provide some transparency, talk a little bit about third-party advertising, and then get into some specific issues within our local ward here. So thanks for being with us here today, Jason. We'll just jump right in and ask you if you could just clarify, just so the viewers know, what communities are you representing in your ward?
So it's Millwoods, Ellerslie kind of area. The boundaries roughly are 50th Street to Gateway, and then White Mud down to 41 Avenue Southwest. It does go a little bit outside of that, like Charlesworth, for example, extends on both sides of 50th Street, and that's included in the riding as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thanks for giving those boundaries. So it's a pretty big ward, lots of issues, as I know I live in this ward. So we'll jump into a little bit of the ward issues. But first, we wanted to talk about third-party advertising. And so for the regular homeowner or citizen out there, if you could just touch on what is third-party advertising and what is the context within the municipal election?
Sure. So third-party advertisers, the rules are there for them to raise issues and promote issues for the municipal election. When politicians want to get elected, it's generally a good time to bring up issues and back them into a corner for a commitment, is to raise a lot of attention to an issue. And so with Working Families Edmonton specifically, they're looking for the issues that they perceive are important to voters, as well as they have an endorsed candidate list.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And so let's just jump into who are Edmonton working families and what's their role in this election?
So it's the Edmonton District Labor Council, which is comprised of a group of unions, and they are putting all their money together. And as I understand it, their intent is that they want the unions to be unified for the first time in, I think it was 50 years, that they wanted that those unions are behind the same candidates to work on union issues.
Okay, and so was there coordination between the Edmonton working families and any candidates, to your knowledge?
So I can't say for sure, but in that leaked document that you referenced, they there was a slide that specified that they had spoken with some of the candidates in advance and that they were all on board for what the intent of Working Families Edmonton were. So, I mean, I didn't witness any of it myself, but I mean, they put it in writing that they did, so I would go with that.
Okay, thank you. And why should voters be concerned about their funding model?
Because it's not transparent. I mean, they talk about all this transparency, and there's a lot of those candidates that are endorsed talk about the transparency, but they don't have to disclose any of their donations before May 1st of this year. That all remains in the dark. And then any other donations during the election period from May 1st till I believe it's the end of this year don't have to get disclosed until March next year, I believe it is.
Okay. And so why did you find this important to release this information to the public?
So uh, for me, it was there was one slide, I think it was slide 8 or slide 17 or something, but where they specified that they're my interpretation of it was that they're going to be running things like a party. They're just pretending to be a third party advertiser so that they can circumvent those financing limits. And I really disagree with that approach. I mean, there's a role for third party advertisers, and there's a role for parties, thanks to Bill 20 and I think the amendments from Bill 50, I believe it was. But to try and blur that line, I think is very disingenuous to the voters.
Yeah, I would agree. As the treasurer with Edmonton Neighborhoods United and chairing a lot of our meetings, we had to register as a third-party advertiser. So I've gotten a little bit of knowledge on it to some extent as to the importance of registering as a third-party advertiser because we ourselves are advertising with, an election issue being the zoning bylaw is one of the number one election issues. So
Mhm.
I can understand the importance of the transparency piece on it from that aspect of being a third party advertiser ourselves. and just, that transparency piece to the public. They have the right to know the advertising money, where it's coming from, and where it's going. So I agree with you on that.
Exactly, and especially with the lack of trust of politicians these days, you draw a connection to whoever's backing them is likely where their interests are, and so without that transparency, people don't know in advance, and yeah, so I mean, now whether or not the politician actually does, derive policies that are favorable to their backers, there's that perception there, and if we're going to rebuild trust with the public, we need to make it clear that we're there to represent the people, not the financial interests that got us elected in the first place.
Yeah, fair point. Should citizens be worried about undue influence in campaign financing in general?
I think so. I think we've seen it with a few politicians or candidates in this election is that uh, they're coming up with policies that support developers and support developments, and then they've got pro-development encouragement policies. But I mean, we've seen that in the past. There was the previous council approved, I think it was about 30 million worth of tax exemption over 5 years for certain developments, and then this council said, you know what, let's do it again. We saw it with the arena deal where they used education money to help pay for the city's portion of the building the arena. And then, uh, I mean, if that deal wasn't in place, that's a 1% tax decrease for everybody. It's a pretty big deal. And then this city council said, you know what, let's do it again with the arena park. And I'm the kind of guy that any day of the week, education is going to take priority over entertainment.
Okay, thank you for that. And moving on to sort of local and policy questions, what should voters in Ward Karhiio be concerned with in this election?
So for me, I think it's the uh, public engagement, right, and being heard. Because what I'm hearing door knocking, infill in the zoning bylaw, number one, taxes, number two. And then after that, it kind of breaks down by neighborhoods. Some areas it's waste collection, some areas it's safety, some areas it's neighborhood renewal. But it all boils down to the same thing is that they're not feeling heard on issues that matter to them.
Okay, wonderful. And if you were to get in, what would be day one? What's your plan with respect to the zoning bylaw?
So I'm looking at that first week. There's a kind of a council training process. There's not really any opportunity to get much done, but I'm looking for first or second week of November. I want to put forward two motions. One, to repeal the current zoning bylaw, and that's going to take some time to come back, at least 6 months. So while we're waiting for surgery, I think we do need to address the wound, and we need some amendments that can be passed by the end of this year. And really, the biggest waiting period on that is that the city has to advertise the bylaw amendments for 3 weeks prior to city council passing it. So I'm looking for some amendments, things like adding minimum parking requirements, toning down the scope and scale of the developments so that we can have not these monstrosities in the neighborhood. And it doesn't matter if it's 1 unit or 8 unit. If you're overshadowing your neighbors and now they can't grow a garden, then you're negatively impacting them. So I think the size
Exactly.
needs to come down a little bit. And really, we're talking about the default of what's automatically approved. It's right now it's 8 units. I think we should scale down to 2 or 4 units depending on lot size, right? Just to avoid a developer, if we set it at four, that they'll lot split, they'll put up a duplex, and then they'll put basement suites just to circumvent to get that fourplex. So I think 4 units with certain, if you meet size requirements.
Great. Now, that's a good segue into my next question, which is balancing growth with also protecting neighborhoods. So, how do you see yourself managing the growth that our city is needing with protecting the neighborhoods?
So I think with a housing crisis right now, we need to have all options on the table. And when we look at infill focused, what we're actually doing is every time we tear down a home that was viable to live in, maybe it had a basement suite too. So we're taking 1 or 2 units out of the housing stock, and then we're waiting a year or two because that's about the process from the time the developer buys the property until the time the eightplex is finished. Is that those 1 to 2 units are taken out of the housing inventory for that long. And now when we're talking about 16,000 permits issued last year, we're talking up to 32,000 homes that were taken out of the inventory in the middle of a housing crisis. So I do understand that we need infill, especially with derelict homes. But we got to look at like for like and replace it with a similar home. Or we also need to look at gentle sprawl, because if we don't develop that area between Sherwood Park and Edmonton, then Sherwood Park will develop it, and we lose out all of that potential tax revenue. So if it's going to be developed anyways, then maybe we should be the first ones on it. And now I'm not a fan of the downtown office tower conversions either, because what that's going to do is take non-residential properties out of the non-residential tax base and add it to the residential tax base, which is going to increase business taxes and make things worse for businesses. But again, we're in a housing crisis, so all options I think need to be on the table.
And how do you see the Millwoods Town Center, that reconstruction and that development changing or influencing the, so-called housing crisis that we're seeing in Edmonton? Because as I see it, I'm a realtor in my day-to-day job, and with the Edmonton Neighborhoods Group, we have thousands of condos on the market. We have thousands of condos being built. Homeowners are moving away from wanting condos as their primary choice. They're looking at more single family. So when we talk about that housing narrative, it's a little bit convoluted in the sense that there actually is a lot of housing options. It's just not that the options that a lot of buyers are looking for. But going back to the Millwoods Town Center development, which I think is 1,500 homes or something, or 1,500 condos, how do you see that impacting our market? And is it sustainable with respect to the amount of growth and population we're seeing coming to Edmonton?
So I have a few concerns about that. One, we know that Mill Woods was built on swamp and landfill. We've seen lots of properties that have foundation issues where the foundation is sinking. And so I haven't seen anything from the developer on can the ground actually sustain this much weight? When we're talking about high rises too, when we'll need to buy more fire trucks that can reach beyond 4 stories, and that's part of the reason too why I'm hesitant to go higher than the hospital in Millwoods. Is that we gotta there's all that additional infrastructure that we didn't look at before. We got to consider the storm and sanitary sewer infrastructure and the electrical grid, and how much capacity do we actually have? And I haven't seen any of that with this development. And furthermore, what really frustrates me about that is they came to council, they asked for 16 stories, they got approved for 16 stories, and then they came back and said, no, now we want 22. And we saw this with the Christopher's Pub site development in the past. They came and asked for 4, they got 4. Then they came back and asked for 8, and then council approved it. And then they came back and asked for 12, and they said, "Oh, yeah, it's going to be transit-oriented development. It's going to be great." And then the city removed all of that transit off of 76th Street there, and so now they're like, "Well, now we're committed to this monstrosity, and we don't even have the transit that we were trying to build around." So there's a lot of factors at play. I don't think that putting these high rises in Millwoods Town Center is a very good idea. I want Millwoods to continue to be Millwoods. I don't want to turn it into downtown. I don't want to turn it into Clairview, and vice versa. There's that certain charm with these areas that I want to keep intact.
Okay, thank you. Clearly, you have a real in-depth knowledge on all this stuff. Um, Kudos to you for doing your homework. Any other final comments for voters out there before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this election is really about who's listening to you and who's going to take your call. If you call the number on my website, it goes right to my phone, and I'm the one that picks up. And every time someone calls, it's oh, I didn't think I'd get Jason. I thought I'd get a staffer, but I'm the one that's there and listening to you. And if you look at the survey on my website, there's not a question about zoning on there at all. But there is an open feedback section at the bottom, and that is where I've been hearing the infill question. And that's why I think it's the number one issue this election, at least for Ward Karhiio voters, because people have been using that open feedback section to tell me about that, and I've been listening, and that's why I came out strong with a position against the zoning bylaw.
Okay, awesome. And where can voters or residents stay informed? Where do you recommend they go to stay informed?
Sure. So, jasonbale.ca is
Okay.
where you can find a lot of my blogs and links to my social media posts. I'd also recommend Edmonton Neighborhoods United. A lot of great information there on infill and how that impacts our communities. And if you're still not sure on how you plan to vote, taproot.vote. There's a survey there that you can fill out, and it will vote match you with the candidate that is reflective of your views. So.
Awesome. Well, clearly, you have my trust, and I feel like a lot of people can trust you. What would you say on the topic of trust and why voters can trust Jason Bale? And really, we can say a lot of things to, gain office or get the votes, but it's being a man of your word, which I know you are. But what would you say to that
So I think it
for that
comes,
trust?
yeah, I think it comes down to there's got to be a lot of trust rebuilding, and like you said, I can say all the right things, but there's that. Well, how do I know? And I mean, if you look at my track record in the past, in Kinniski area there, when I worked in the previous city councilor Mike Nichols' office, we heard from residents that they were having problems with cars crashing into their fences. So we picked up the phone and we did something about it. We were the third councillor to have that issue, passed down to us, and we were the ones that got something done about it there. When it came to, we heard concerns about safety in the communities, more in the northern part of the ward, which back then was like Hazeldean, King Edward Park, Ritchie, that kind of area. We heard a lot of concerns about safety, so we set up a community policing program. And within the first year of that program, we shut down 3 meth labs just by having police in the community talking to dog walkers, finding out what's happening in the neighborhood. And then when it comes to things like neighborhood renewal, I see Mayo Cuman's going through it right now. Hillview's next, and then Mayanock. And now Mayo Cuman, they're telling me, look, we didn't ask for a second sidewalk here going across our fields. We didn't ask for all these curb extensions. And the city says, well, you didn't tell us that you didn't want it. So I looked at, for Hillview here coming up in January is their opportunity to oppose it. But the city is putting the burden on residents. It's a 30-day window. You got to get it signed by commissioner of oaths, and you need everybody that's on the land title to sign for it. It's so burdensome. I would rather flip that around. I want to look at ways like, can we make it so that the city has to get the majority of owner occupied residents on board with whatever neighborhood renewal is going on? So those are the kind of things that I'm looking at. And, based on my track record, I think I am the right one to serve and start rebuilding that trust.
Okay, awesome. Well, on behalf of Edmonton Neighborhoods United, we are profoundly grateful for you taking the time to sit with us today and answer these really important questions that we were really curious about. And also, I'm sure a lot of the voters in Karhiio are also curious about. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks very much, Dallas.
Okay, have a great day.
You too. Bye.